full swing. People today are going to be upset.
I
Well,
hope.
mostly at me, though. Just me, though. Jason's here to...
Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome to episode 8 of Climbing the Ladder. I'm your host, ChanmanV, and joining me as always is John Clark from CSN, co-hosting. How's it going, John?
It's going well. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
Well, today we've got two awesome guests, and two guests that I've been, it's been probably a good 2 months. I mean, definitely from the beginning of the show, I've been wanting to have on the show. So today is going to be a really fun day. These two guys are very experienced, are very knowledgeable, have a ton of advice and experiences to really share with us. So first guest I want to introduce is Jason Tugman. He's the founder of iHeart Esports and various other startups and companies too. How's it going, Jason?
Going very, very well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for again, thanks for coming on. And our second guest is Jerry Prochazka from the owner of VVV Gaming, Lord Jareth. I guess a lot of people know you from that tag. How's it going, Jerry?
Jerry works fine. Please, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on, and it's always a pleasure to be on with Jason. So thank you so much.
All right. So the first thing I want to start off with is kind of the misconceptions segment that we always do on the show. And part of the misconceptions, I did want to talk about one recent event too. Before we get into just the typical segue that we usually go into, and I wanted to talk about the spades issue just because it was such a huge topic yesterday. For those of you who don't know what's going on with that, is that basically a thread on Team Liquid was started that made accusations that Spades was map hacking in his show match with Lucifron. And the TL thread actually went through, it was really detailed as to walking through each of the replays and noting things that seemed suspicious, and basically started this huge community discussion that involved a lot of players, a lot of accusations, and I think it resulted in even Root Cats getting on for like a few hours last night and really doing an analysis with other players like Illusion and TT1 and Druby. So yeah, I wanted to kind of start off with that because it's not so much Spades in general. I mean, we can talk about that in specific, but I definitely wanted to get a little bit more of a broader view in the end of this as to map hacking and stream cheating on online events and how prevalent that you guys think that is, and like does the community even realize how prevalent it is in in all of esports, or in particularly StarCraft, including the Koreans, just globally speaking. So yeah, so let me start off with, why don't I start with you, Jason? Like, what do you think of that whole situation?
So I think that there are two important distinctions to make. Obviously we are esports. So and it seems like every time that I'm on any show, we're always casting pitchforks in one way or another. Yeah. And it's always personality based, or oh, did you see what he said, or what he did, or he slighted somebody, or BM'd. This to me is actually a little different. So cheating is, and we've gone through this kind of with the Koreans, and we haven't really gone through this too much with Americans and kind of in American tournaments too much, because I think the Koreans have shown like this is how bad this is. This isn't about personality. This kind of gets down to the core of what we are, which is a sport, and this gets down to the purity of the sport. And so that's why I kind of perked up and paid attention. If this was just him trying to get to Grandmaster or something like that, okay, I can maybe make a discussion about that. But as far as it being prevalent in tournaments, I think that this happening is exactly what should happen and would happen if somebody cheats in a tournament. We're dealing with pros who noticed the minutia of a game, and this was noticed. And so while I don't think that we've seen the last of tournament cheating, I do think that we as gaming professionals, and especially the pro gamers, have an eye for rooting that stuff out. And don't think that if you lose a tournament match, you're not going to watch that VOD, and you are, and you're going to pay very close attention to it. So come what may is, I think, how I would sum that up.
Jerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree. I mean, I'll share an example. We had one of our players, not one of our pro players. I mean, obviously we're community-based. And he beat someone, and the person he beat came to our StarCraft manager, and he said, I think he had somebody else playing his account. So we decided because we've got such a large community, we can instantly hold kind of like a quick game, a match, just for fun. And we played, and we played a couple matches, and then we suddenly said, hey, you know what, can you do this particular type of build? I really want to know if you know how to do this. They said, sure. And we looked at his timing, and it was completely off. Right? He just beat somebody with this same build order, and the execution was horrible. And we said, yeah, this is a problem. So then we took that a step further, and I pulled him aside, and I said, look, you know, I know right now everything that your instincts are telling you are to keep lying because you're not going to get caught. I'm telling you that you will have a very difficult time convincing me that you were the one who played. So we kept going, and then eventually he just said, you know, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he kind of disappeared for a bit, and then while he was in his bathroom time was actually writing me a long email. And he said, look, this is stupid for me to keep doing this. I did have one of my Korean friends plan my account. That's how badly I wanted to go to Anaheim. And I said, well, you did the first right thing by letting us know. I said, the next thing you need to go is you need to go tell the tournament advisor what happened, and you obviously need to forfeit that match and give the win to the right person who deserved it. Right? And in that case, I don't get angry. I don't get mad. It's that sort of come what may. There's a right way to handle that. And I want to throw one thing out here in these debates I see about good and bad behavior. As gamers, as in a social space, we have a lot more elasticity for bad behavior. I can handle when a friend of mine gets drunk and has bad behavior. But if he gets drunk inside the police station, it's a different feel. When you're saying I'm a professional gamer and I want to attract a lot of money and I want to be paid a salary, it's not, we as an audience member, we as industry people have to expect different things because our business partners will expect different things. So in this particular case, I think it's horrible that he did this, right? I don't think it's good, and not for the reason that it doesn't happen, but I tend to be the one that I'm really disinterested in how much people may or may not cheat. I'm really interested in trying to lead by example and pushing the envelope of the best possible behavior versus having this sort of tolerance for bad behavior. So in a lot of ways I agree with Jason, and I probably would take it a step farther and say we've got to do the job, if we're going to be a professional esport, to not think that it's edgy or cool or we can get away with it. Because the first day a major sponsor closes a door because of inappropriate behavior, and I think we've all seen enormous examples of political correctness in all kinds of sponsorship moments. Why would we, as a fledgling industry, not put our best foot out there and make sure that we do the best instead of, I don't know, getting into these nuanced arguments about is it really that bad, is it this? Because to me the answer is I certainly don't want to be the one to have to explain that to McDonald's. And I'm sure Sundance doesn't want to be the one to explain that to McDonald's. Or David Ting doesn't want to be the one to explain that to McDonald's, when they could have been making sure that all these players had great salaries. I just think we have to do a better job of policing ourselves.
You know, along that line, though, in that context, this actually would be an example where if and I don't know why this would ever come up, but if a sponsor came out and said, oh, but there was this guy who cheated in this tournament and did all this stuff, you know, how is that? We can actually point to this example and be like, he did. And instead of being like, oh, you know, chucking him out on his ear and kicking his ass, someone made it a very long, very detailed blog post about it. The members of his own team went on a stream and spent 2.5 hours. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a portion of it, where Katz went through it and was actually criticizing and critiquing it and discussing it. And to me, this is self-policing in action. To me, if this was GSL or if this was something like that, I'm not saying it wasn't a major tournament, but you know, I think that we did see policing in action, and I think that in a way it's actually kind of a proud moment because we said, oh, no, busted, you're not getting away with that, and we, the community, have the proof to kind of back that up.
So, yeah, I would agree.
Yep.
Yeah, the self-policing issue is a pretty interesting point. I mean, I think I generally agree with it. I mean, I think, you know, I think it's probably the most efficient way of doing it. just because there's obviously more people in the community that can do it. While we're if we try to depend on folks like Blizzard or the developers to really come up with anti-cheating tools or detection, it's probably not going to happen quickly. You know what I mean? So I kind of agree that way, but I have to say that given whether he did it or not, and I think right now the meter's really kind of moved over to the side where a lot of people think that he did indeed map hack. I don't know. It just feels so bad. I just feel kind of saddened by the whole thing, because as a community, last thing I want to see are like, players, really talking, bad about other players, that kind of thing, and it's I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm kind of a little bit torn because I know Spades. We've had him on the show, and in some ways it seems contradictory to the way he is because I've always felt like he's always been the type that he could just walk away from the game. He's always been a realist. He's always understood that there's not much money to be made right now, so maybe I should just walk away like right now. So
but he has done that before.
Yeah, true. I mean, he has but he he definitely has done it in the past. But just I don't know. That's why it's a bit conflicting for me. I don't know, John. Like, what do you think? I mean, we had him on the show like a few weeks ago.
Well, when I talked with him and we had him on the show, I was actually quite impressed with his understanding of esports, his business sense, and kind of how he saw things moving forward. I have actually a completely different take on this. I don't care what the community says. As an organizer of an event, if I'm IPL, MLG, I don't give two shits what the community says. For me, it has to come down to absolute solid proof. And a bunch of people analyzing him stream, that's not proof. The only proof that you can get is if you actually see him do it. And I don't care if his friends or his teammates said that he did it. If they didn't say it originally, coming out and saying it now is it's not proof enough. If I was running an event and Spades said I'd like to enter, I'd have to let him enter. There's no proof. And so I understand the whole policing thing and the idea that the community gets behind it, but I've been in the Quake community for a long time, and the Quake community has done that for a long time. This guy cheats, oh my god, and they analyze his demos, and oh, it's absolutely obvious. And then it turns out that there's been an AC running, an anti-cheat running the whole time, and ID software's been analyzing, people's play. Turns out the guy never cheated, at least according to the anti-cheat that they have. But people won't even join an event. They'll claim this guy is absolutely cheating. He's doing this or he's doing that. You can't let him in the event. How can I not let him in the event? There's zero proof. And so what saddens me about it is that there are a lot of other pros, there's a lot of other prominent players and figures in the community that are all jumping on this right now, and it's a constant flow of information basically based on their own observations. There's zero proof that he's cheated. And as an organizer, I would have to, that's what I'd have to go with. And then obviously, I bet if you went to MLG's website or IPL's website and you looked at the rules, I bet there's a lot of things missing that don't cover this, that should now obviously be addressed. So there is some good from this because I think these things can be addressed much better in the tournament rules. But I guess as an organizer, I mean, if he wants to play, I'd let him play. And Chris and I talked about this a little bit earlier. It's very important that he goes to MLG. If he had plans to go to MLG, he needs to go to MLG. He needs to play, and he needs to do what he can to basically prove those that are already accusing him wrong. If he doesn't go to MLG, then I think it looks really bad on his part. But
that I very much agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, guys, whenever you want to chime in, just chime in, like Jerry. Like
well, it's one of those things that I will agree with the last statement that he needs to go to MLG. I think there's no question about that. I think we can all agree on that for a lot of reasons. But John, I kind of have to disagree with this idea of what you call proof. And I hate to get legal, but I just want to throw this out there because I'm just a real world guy. I can't help it. I can't leave it. So I think of like words like substantial evidence versus preponderance of the evidence versus clear and convincing evidence. Right? When I go to court of law, certain crimes require a different degree of what we call burden of proof. And in this case, right, I would say that the analysis of his play puts him somewhere between substantial evidence, right, as there's substantial evidence that he may not, right, that he may have done this hacking. Is there a preponderance of the evidence? Is there clear and convincing evidence? Maybe not. But not every crime requires clear and convincing evidence to be ruled upon. Right? And again, I hate to get philosophical legal, but if we're going to be a business, then I can't dumb it down for the kiddies, so to speak. I can't just say, oh, you know, it's right, it's wrong. Chris knows him, he's his friend, he hates him, he's seen him cheat. You know, John heard that he cheated from so-and-so. All that aside, to the other point that I do agree with, though, John, is it does bring us to that question of, what will be our burden of proof for these types of accusations? Now, obviously, LAN events are the way to solve a lot of this, but they're not always practical. And I think that there's a push there's a desire, there are dreams to be able to operate in a purely digital space. And right now, it's faulted. And to me, I think our question is, what standard, what burden of proof do we need to have in order to make these kinds of judgments? And obviously, nobody has that answer. Nobody's thought about it yet. And I think that's why we see a debate.
Well, there would be, in some communities, they'll put together a team, you know, an anti-cheat team. And their job is to look at demos and make a decision. They'll have an odd number of people that do it, 5, and they'll take a vote on it. And if looking after, you know, if after looking at the demos in a very unbiased way, they determine that they believe this person is cheating, then the organization running an event would say, okay, our anti-cheat team has found, enough evidence to say that we're not going to include this person in our event. I don't have that team, so if Spades came to me, and I had some sort of open StarCraft 2 event, and he signed up, until I had some sort of proof or there was some sort of anti-cheat in place, I'd have to let him in. So that's the only way. That's the way I'm looking at it. I completely agree with you that there's probably plenty of circumstantial evidence.
So, and I think it's important to note here that the burden of proof or how much circumstantial or how much evidence that we need here is very, very different for John than it is for Jerry. So, because we're talking about we're talking about a tournament organizer and a team manager. So, and also, so your needs of proof, so the misdemeanor versus felony, are vastly, vastly different here. But also, in going to the tournament, let's just say there's nothing that can prove a man guilty faster than showing up to a tournament and performing badly. If he performs, let's say he gets top 32, okay, he's a solid player, whether he made, and now we go from, making a bad decision to, which is stream cheating, but still being a solid player, to actually being innocent and being, having to prove that he's innocent, going to a tournament and getting knocked out in the first round. I don't care who you play. You get knocked out in the first round, and the only thing anyone is ever going to say is, even if you're innocent, is whatever, if you perform badly, only thing people are going to point at is like, yeah, he showed up, but then he got out last place, so boom. So in a way, he's in a lose-lose situation unless he goes top 32.
I have some breaking news. He just announced that he's left his team.
Well, I mean, Western Wolves had already made a statement that they were letting him go, so it wasn't. I mean, it was going to happen regardless. But yeah, I mean, it's the consequences of. I think for me, like the consequences of all this, and we are talking about like a flawed system here, and trying to figure this out, and that's kind of why I brought it up, because I do want to discuss like possible solutions for this, right? But for me, it's like when the consequence is basically an ended career. I feel like. I don't know. I feel like it should be handled a little bit, I don't know, more cautiously, particularly from, from the other players. It's like, sure, we can self-police, and I don't completely disagree with what Cats did. Having a stream and just gathering other players to really analyze it, because they are the experts. I mean, they can really, really analyze these things, more so than I can, and explain it to us too, right? But for me, it's like, when what's at stake here is really his career and his, I guess livelihood for the time being, right? Yeah, I don't know. That's the part that really makes me a little cautious, just to really jump on the bandwagon like this. And, Pitchfork, it's one thing to Pitchfork when we're talking about something that people will forget about, like a couple weeks. won't have much of a somebody's banned from TL for I don't know a month or something. No big deal. You know what I mean? But when you're talking about like his career could be over tomorrow. And it's not to say if he did it, he deserves it. But I'm just saying, like, we don't have, like, the proof that we're talking about here, or we don't have, like, just absolutely positive about it, and he has to prove otherwise. It just seems
to me,
a weird situation to me.
It's so funny. This is such an interesting topic. I actually feel that this is the one time that, that the community didn't actually pitchfork. I mean,
Right.
people obviously,
Sure.
but there's a huge difference between, the orb thing or just really anything that Destiny does or, anything like that. That's pitchforking, or, this is, I think again, I look at this as a weirdly positive thing. Root got on their stream and they said, okay, let's take a look, as opposed to what was their other alternative. We took a look at the stream and we analyzed it. We all sat around and we think that he did not cheat, as opposed to let's turn the camera on and let's watch it live and let's discuss it in real time.
Yeah, but did they already go into it having preconceived idea?
No idea.
I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah.
If they went into it already saying, we're going to go into this proving that he cheated, I guarantee you, I could send some guys in Quake Live, a demo or a replay of somebody that is notoriously known for cheating, right? Never been caught. And I could say, hey, man, we really think he cheated. Can you guys look at this and tell us what you think? And let's say these guys already have that same preconceived idea, and this has happened. They will look at that demo, and they will. The more you look at it, the more things you're going to find that seem fishy. And that, to me, becomes the problem. And when it's all out there on Team Liquid and everyone sees it, and Root's on their stream discussing it, and I think they're discussing it in a very biased way, in my opinion, then all of a sudden you get everyone on board with it. And the poor guy has no way. There's no way he's going to be able to redeem himself unless he goes and wins MLG. He could get 3 rounds heavy into it, win 3 great matches, and there's still going to be people, that have already made up their minds about him, because the community got so up in arms about, which I'm not saying is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's going to happen, and it actually doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what the organizers do or anything. Things like this are always going to happen. There's going to be some guy that comes along and out of nowhere he's doing things in StarCraft 2 that nobody's seen, and they're like, what's going on? And one pro is going to call him out and call him a cheater, and the next thing you know, it's just going to snowball from there. So I mean, it's always going to happen, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it happened to Spades, because he's doomed at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of getting to what are possible solutions for this? I mean, should really Blizzard have more of an initiative to create more of an anti-cheating team? I don't know if they do have a team or how big that is. But these hacks that we're talking about are out there for everybody to use, and it's like I can just Google StarCraft 2 hack right now, and a bunch of stuff comes up. And I mean, it's easy for one of their engineers. I mean, it's not easy, but it's definitely plausible that one of their engineers could just go and try to reverse engineer these things and create prevention for it, right? Is that the solution that you think? Do you guys think that's the best solution to something like this?
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, I think we got to be careful that technology may be the limiting factor here, right? I mean, we can only do what we can do, and I think it's very difficult to expect perfection from a very imperfect system. So, I mean, to me, it will take quite a bit for me to be confident that online can ever really be foolproof. And I mean, there's so many ways for people to do various things to interfere with the gamer's ability to compete. I mean, we see, denial of service attacks and other things like that happen that are very difficult in today's technology to prevent. And because of those challenges, I just think, at least for now, my expectation is that it's very difficult to do something online. We should be focused on LAN events, and that being the real proving ground. And as much as we might like to admit that, I think what we're facing is the limitation of technology.
I see. Yep, that makes.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have, and even, I mean, we've even had a situation where the community said we're not going to play in this event if he doesn't video camera, doesn't put a cam up, so that we can watch him. So we actually had a guy that we requested, we're like, can you at least do this, just so that the community would get off your back? And they set up a camera. He set up a camera behind him so that people could watch his movements, what was on his screen, and everything. And even with that, as you said, Jerry, there are limitations. I mean, he could have something going in the background that nobody really even notices. So there are a lot of limitations to online gaming as far as the technology to catch hackers and cheaters. It's unfortunate, but
I was trying to look it up, and I can't remember the name of it. There's a scientific phrase. I was trying to Google it faster, and I couldn't. It's like Bader Mannheim something or other. It's the principle of forgive me for not. I was trying to Google it, but once you, it's like the movie, whatever, it's 11 or 17 or 13, or guy sees that number and then he sees it everywhere and he starts drawing comparisons and conclusions. It's kind of one of those things. Like if we go in, and this goes back to what John was saying earlier about preconceived notions, that could be kind of a subconscious thing as well. But that's maybe getting a little beyond the need of esports. Do I think that there should be a committee? No. I think is it up to the tournaments to make a determination? Yes. Is it up to the teams to make a personal determination about the player? Yes. And is it up to the community to make a personal determination about that player, caster, tournament, or whatever? Yes. So we have a yes, yes, and a yes. But we also have a no, which is, and this is funny coming from a Democrat living in D.C., but bureaucracy here is not the answer. So we don't need to create a law to make this from never happening again, because that's a very slippery slope for that gets us in the society to the do it for the children mentality, which is a very bad thing. So no, I don't think that there should be technology. I don't think that there can be technology. But I do think that if an organizer or a tournament or an event or a player or a team or even a community wanted to do these independent things, they can, and they can make their own distinctions and decisions. But as we've seen with any BM that's happened in the community, just because someone does something really, really bad doesn't mean that they can't recover from it, and they can't turn it around, even though it's a very, very bad thing. That, welcome to community. That is what a community is. So, no, I would be the only negative thing that I could see coming out of this at all is if a system was put in place to solve the problem. Because believe me when I say, and Stuxnet proves this, hackers are smarter than you are.
Yep.
Hackers are smarter than bureaucracy, period. So, and that's it. So if we know that that's the problem and the answer, then that is also our answer. And that's just where you have to leave it,
I see, yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, the hackers are always going to be one step ahead of you, so it's a never-ending process.
Fun to talk about.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But I didn't plan on that taking so much of the show, but I felt like it was really important to talk about the issue, and I'm glad we did. But let's try to get back. I'm going to try to let's get some of these segments that I've been wanted to talk to Jason and Jerry about, and kind of want to start out with you, Jason, and I kind of want to get the background of your experiences, just to have kind of explain that to the users, and some of the companies you've started, and
Sure.
and just a little bit of that.
Yep. So iHeart Esports is, I guess, my third company that I started specific to gaming, where I really have been spending the past 2 years narrowing in and focusing in on gaming. I knew that it's a space that I've wanted to work in for a long time. Actually, I've been running kind of fan sites and stuff like that for, over 10 years. So gaming is always, online gaming and stuff like that has always been a very, very huge interest of mine, and I've tried wherever possible to make it my living. By trade, everybody knows that I do production, but I'm also a technologist. That's actually my current day job, is I'm a technologist. And I've run internet startups. I've run very, very large companies, and I've run very small companies. I've done the venture capital thing, where I raised, millions of dollars for internet startups. But I've also run a Star Wars Galaxy fan site, where I made my living off of Google AdWords, for a Star Wars Galaxy fan site. So I've been on all sides of the spectrum on that, and most of it's always been around two things: one, community, and two, gaming. Those are my two huge interests. So, I started HangWith.me a couple of years ago, which I really focused in on gamers and kind of the online community, trying to get people to a better way to find other people to just hang out with. That morphed itself into a company called QQ Ninja. Really, was what we call in the business world we call a pivot. Pivoted into QQ Ninja. Same site, same technology, different run end. Ended up closing those down just because they were getting lots of traffic but weren't making any money, and I'm not looking to make a hobby, I'm looking to make a business. So I've been, I kind of went dormant for a little while just trying to think of a new idea, and my one decision in starting iHeart Esports was I'm kind of done with internet startups for right now. I wanted to touch the thing that I was actually going to make and sell. Because in the internet world, you don't touch your code. It's kind of this very amorphous thing. And so with this company, I knew I wanted to be around not only gaming, but I knew it was going to be an esports company. But I also wanted it to be a physical thing. Like I love the idea of touching the customer, of reaching out and giving them something. And a physical product is kind of how I came at that, and so that's where iHeart Esports morphed or came from, and that's what So right now we're obviously making collectible esports cards, and a huge shout out to John. John was actually my very first early supporter. Actually, I think he's probably the first guy that I even told the idea to over many months ago, and he's like, "Oh my God!" John being a football card collector of his own. So he was actually a great inspiration for us. And now we're actually morphing into other products. We've got some big stuff coming, some big announcements with partnerships that we've got. We're going to start selling mice and keyboards, and we're working with the gaming companies, and that's actually coming like sooner than we're ready for. It's coming very, very soon. And so we're actually going out, we're morphing from stickers, and this goes in the idea of kind of just evolving your company continuously. And we're going to start selling keyboards and mice and mouse pads, and working with our first company. Sure, I'll tell you, TT Esports will be the first company that we work with, and that will be coming just literally in a couple of weeks. So.
Yay, TT Esports! Yeah, they're doing some great things, and it's really good to hear that they're working with you, because they like to work with a lot of smaller things, like my shows, for instance, and love that. So here's a question: what's the most valuable card right now for you guys? So which player, who's the Mickey Mantle of the iHeart Esports collector cards?
There really is no. I was trying to find it. It's actually the one that I don't have in my tag. It's over there. It's White Raw.
It's White Raw.
White Raw sells. I don't know. 4 to.
There he is.
Oh hell! Look at that right there. Signed there.
Signed even.
Yeah. He probably sells 4 to 1.
Oh really? Nice.
Else. Yeah. And here's the reason is it's actually a very easy. We're working with a new team who I won't say yet. I want to, but I won't. But we're working with a new team. It's what I told them when they asked for our sales numbers. I said, look, here's the teams that we just make stickers for, and they go out into the world. Here's the teams that actually pump their stuff, and here's the guy, which is White Rock, who really he puts it on his Facebook, he puts it on his Twitter. We go to tournaments and he signs them and he holds them up, and he's all about his sticker. Actually, him and Violet loves his sticker. We showed Violet stickers at MLG, and he's like, "Oh, it's my sticker!" He's super awesome, right? He's so pumped about it. But so sales is about popularity, but it's also about promotion. And White Raw just pumps his product, and the proof is in the pudding. We sold almost 100 stickers at a live event in Canada last month. So. That's a lot of stickers.
So when it comes to the stickers, do you work with the players individually, or how does that work actually? How are you getting rights to these images, right, of the players? Because I know you had a deal with was it IPL or IGN, right, last year, or this earlier this year?
Yep.
And I know it had to do with the player database.
Yes.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So biggest this was my my wake up call in esports. This was, you know, like, I've been in business a long time. I consider myself a reasonably smart business guy, but that doesn't mean that you know the community in which you're trying to start a business in. And so esports for me, I was, when I very first started, I started reaching out to the individual players, and I would you know, reach out to the players and be like, hey, I want to work with you. I want to do a sticker for you. I want to do these products for you. And then one day a team manager called me up, literally called me up, and said, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, don't talk to the players, talk to me, like, because that's their job.
Right.
And I was just like, you moron, you know, myself being a moron. Like, what was I thinking? So, yeah, the long way around on that is, yeah, we work directly with the teams. So we have a licensing agreement with the teams. We reach out to the teams. We sign licensing agreements with the teams. And because the teams own the property, which is the player. They own the rights and the name rights and the image rights and all of that stuff. And it's actually in most of the player contracts that they're not allowed to do independent stuff. And that's the reason. So yeah, we pay the teams a percentage of every sale, retail. So if we sell something for $10, the team gets a percentage of that $10. If we sell it for $7, they, you know, see that works. Right. Our second biggest problem was, so our lesson number one was work with the teams, not the players. One thing that we realized was their biggest hurdle, which we didn't see coming, was the teams actually don't have a lot of really awesome photographs of their own players.
I can tell you that too.
It's embarrassing, actually.
And I'm like, I had no idea, and I was like, holy crap. So now we're in this weird situation of, like, they're sending us photos, and I'm like, do you own that photo? Oh, so-and-so took it at such and such event. I'm like, I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Exactly.
You know, so now we had to find, we were reaching out to photographers to get licensing. So now we have to pay the team, and now we've got to pay the photographer. And, you know, stickers, there's not a whole lot of money in to begin with. So that pie just started getting split too many ways. Enter IPL. IPL just said, hey, we love what you guys are doing. Photo database. What do you need? Boom. And our first team was Rain. And that actually was just a coincidence. We didn't do it because at the time they were managing Rain, or, you know, Rain was in existence. And so the first thing we did with that was Rain. And they've actually just been a huge, huge, huge supporter of us since day one. So, yeah,
awesome.
photos.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on that photo thing. It's really, it baffles me that some teams don't do that. That'd be like the first thing I did if I ran a team. Is, okay, we're going to get you ready to be marketed.
Yep. I mean,
not only as a player and your results, but if people want to know who you are, we have to find a way to successfully do that. And sending some sort of grainy webcam picture is, I mean, ridiculous. It just baffles me that teams don't think that through. Like, should we really have a picture of our players? Well, yeah, you should.
The answer that I get to that is, and you know this, John, well, you know, the team, it's an international team, and you know, people are everywhere. I'm like, yeah, but you know, they got professional photographers at the mall that you can pay $30 to just go in there, get a white background, you know, and just say, I need a full body, I need this, hold the keyboard to do a thumbs up. Like, make a list. Put them in the t-shirt, give them $30, and off they go. And, you know.
I mean, if you want lessons on how this should be done, like it or hate it, EG is a good example of marketing their players. There's lots of teams like that. I mean, well, not lots. There's several teams like that, but you know, they're pretty good at that, and other teams should definitely take note of that.
Right. So Jason, like, I'm kind of, you know, segueing into the next topic. So given that you've worked, you know, in the tech industry, you know, with a lot of internet startups and, you know, obviously broad range of the size of the companies too, what do you see as the main difference between, let's just compare internet and just tech companies to an esports, you know, type of company, whether it's tech or it's more merchandise related or, you know, that type of thing?
What's the biggest difference?
Yeah, what do you see as like do you, obviously there are probably a lot of parallels, you know, given that you were probably there for the beginning of the internet kind of boom too.
Bust.
Yeah, or bust or boom bubble, whatever you're
Bust.
talking
We'll call
about.
it bust.
Yeah. But yeah, so what do you see? I mean, what are some of the parallels you see? I guess as a esports as a growing industry, and what do you see as like the biggest or challenges that are unique to esports?
The biggest benefit that esports has is, in a way, its biggest Achilles heel, which is its community. The one thing that esports has going for it, and the one thing that any business needs to know coming into esports is we are not a market. And note I said the word "we" there, right? Mm-hmm. So we are not a market. We are not someone to be marketed to. We are a community, and we are a community first. And I think that the moment that a company comes in and treats us like a market, that I think it's going to be the moment that we either, from a sociological perspective, just break down and start just going that way, or we kick that company out the door. So for me, just being kind of a technology guy, but also a marketing guy and all that stuff, I have to literally wear my community hat first, which is awesome because I love esports and I love all that. So I'm glad to be a member of that. But I think that the knowledge of coming at this from a community perspective is, I think, the number one thing. And I actually think that, so I've got two guys that now work with me on iHeartEsports, and our mantra, our internal mantra is love the customer, right? And they kind of are tired of me saying that, but love the customer. They didn't get their order, send it to them again. Well, but maybe it doesn't matter. Send it to them again. Like, right. It doesn't matter. Love the customer. And if you do that, then the customer loves you. And if they love you, then they buy your stuff. And it's just, and so we're getting into this, and you'll hear more about this topic because, we're going to writing blogs and stuff. But that ecosystem, and I think that is the other big thing that goes along with community, with, market, or, however you want to say, because we are a group of people that do buy things, right? So we've got the customer, and we've got the thing in which we love, and then we've got the product. And if all three of those things can loop back together, then all of a sudden we have a self-sustaining ecosystem. Right. And so that is really where we are going as a company. Is we're not coming at it from the way that, say, in a typical internet startup is, which is, it's weird that it is still this way, but it very much is, eyeballs. Old school .com days was all about eyeballs. Well, now it's all about users, and the only difference there is how we describe eyeballs, right? So, and that's what internet is. So we're all about traction. We're all about, what's your month over month, and what's your uniques, and all those things in which we gauge success in an internet company. But for us, we actually gauge it. We're actually kind of coming at it from the ecosystem perspective. Is if I'm a fan and I love this thing, which is esports or Evil Geniuses or whomever, it could be Day 9, right? And if I have a product for Evil Geniuses or Day 9 or just esports in general, if we can keep that money inside of esports, then everybody wins. And that's where we are going, and that's kind of how you'll see us expand. That's the idea of the stickers, right? We sell stickers to fans that love esports, and that money comes to us, an esports company, but it also goes back to the team and the player. So all of that money comes from esports and stays in esports. And where I see a leak happening is companies that market to esports, but don't necessarily put money back into esports. And there's a little leak that happens in that ecosystem. And that's kind of where we're going with the next iteration of iHeartEsports, is we're looking to plug that leak. And that's where we're going to start selling the hardware and stuff like that, is because we want to keep all of that money inside of esports and not just some of the majority of the money. So we can just make this nice little ecosystem, so buy keyboards from us, and that money goes to TT Esports. It goes to White Raw, because they have White Raw mouse pads and keyboards and stuff, and it goes to us, and we can put that right back in the community. So ecosystem. So I think that's what we have going for us. But I think with that perspective, I think is hopefully how we're looking to kind of break the mold of a traditional marketing product company. I don't.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Jerry, you still there? Hello, Jerry?
He had to step away. He said,
Oh.
just for a second. He said, "Be right back."
Oh, okay. I thought he was. Oh, I thought he was already back. I was just wondering.
No,
if he
no,
was,
you know, I'm actually there, but I had my mic muted.
Oh, okay. I was like, "There's no way Jerry
He's
is
probably
this quiet,
been talking
dude."
this whole time, and he's like, "These guys are ignoring me."
No, not at
This
all.
show
Not
sucks.
at all. No, I mean, I've heard Jason tell. I want to just comment. I've heard Jason tell this story before, and I've always thought it's one that, you know, we need people with that kind of perspective to remind us that we need entrepreneurs in the space who get keeping money in the space. Like, we need people to do that. So I don't want, you know, I remember somebody made a comment to me, and I said, you know, I don't want it to seem that I'm necessarily saying you have to buy your keyboards from Jason, but I'm saying that what Jason is doing as a member of the esports community, practicing his business, it's very easy to wholeheartedly support that because you're not leaking money outside of esports. And we're not going to be able to do that with everything we do. So we want to make sure we've got fertile ground so that entrepreneurs that want to do what Jason's doing can and get recognition and are supported for what they do. Because, you know, no offense to Jason, it's not going to make him a billionaire, but it's certainly going to be able to make him, as this grows, sustain a living, a good living, hopefully, and keep that money in esports. I mean, those are the kind of things that we don't want to get lost when we're thinking about, you know, who do we support, who do we promote, what ideas do we want to promote in this space. I happen to like that idea, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's you know, that's definitely interesting because I know most of the people that, you know, I've been talking to, you know, these days are always talking about, you know, growing esports, right? Like really just you know, not necessarily the leak that you're talking about, which is really interesting. I think that's, you know, I think what you just talked about there is a great, you know, great thing, great point. But you know, what do you think about, you know, like you're talking about the ecosystem, and really, I mean, your company will basically grow as esports grows, right? But you know, like you said, it's an ecosystem within esports. What do you think about the, I guess, concept of people, you know, entrepreneurs starting things that will, you know, kind of just make that esports pie grow? I mean, is that a, you know, is that viable right now, or, you know, or for young entrepreneurs really wanting to get in esports, it is a better approach to kind of take the one that you're taking, which is, you know, kind of live in this ecosystem, live, you know, within it, and let other people try to grow this pie and you know, kind of scale with it. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is it smart to try to start a business right now that's you know, that's not so endemic, I guess. You know, that it's more about, like, you know, pulling on like people that don't know anything about esports right now.
Yeah, so they're both incredibly needed. So it takes entrepreneurs that do that kind of thing, that grow the pie entrepreneur, that help people like me to then, you know, get a larger customer base. But it's then my responsibility to look at that guy that's growing the pie and then work with him and help him, because again, what's the business model? What's the profit motive of a grow the pie guy, right? It could be a tournament, which is a very, very viable thing, which is ad sponsors and viewers and all of that, you know, that kind of thing. But those tournaments don't typically tend to be product guys, because it's just too, it's called stovepiping or you know, a vertical integration or anything that you want to, you know, call it. It's just too diversified within a business model to do. So they rely on people like me that do sell products, but I rely on them, you know, people who can have dedicated eyeballs on my product. So again, that's an ecosystem within an ecosystem. It's very, very viable. But what the new entrepreneur needs to really know is, and these are the bad words, right? If you're not making money, are you really an entrepreneur?
That's so true. Yep.
You know, and it's so.
True.
And believe me, I'm not making money. So am I an entrepreneur right now? So it just goes back to, you know, is this your hobby or is this your business? And we all know that it's your passion, because why in the hell would you get into esports if you weren't passionate about it? Because right now, it's just not like, it's not a get-rich scheme. Right? Anybody that works in esports knows that it's, you know, John knows this, like, it's, you know, 199% effort for, 1%, so 200% effort, 100 for 1% return from a dollar perspective, and that's just the way that it is. But there's very little places where you can combine what I would be doing anyway, which is coming home and playing StarCraft and watching streams, and then combining that into a business. So yeah, there's room and there's need. There's a strong need, but it's okay. I think the takeaway is it's okay to make money from your passion. It really is. It's okay. You just can't come at it from that can't be your first motivator. If profit is your motivator, you are in the wrong business.
Absolutely.
So.
You need to convince my wife of that.
Jeez.
No, yeah. I'm lucky that she's been in esports too for a long time, and that's actually how I met her. But at some point she's like, okay, so how much more passion do you have for this, where you're not getting paid that much? I'm very fortunate, and I tell people this all the time that come to me, and they're like, geez, how do I get a paid position? And it's unfortunate I can't even pay a lot of my CSN staff who work their tails off, And I just say, hey, this is esports. It's going to take time, and it really will take time. And that's why it scares me sometimes, I guess, on the other end of the spectrum, where I see people making a lot of money for doing really stupid shit. It's like people investing in Jersey, in the show Jersey Shore, and there's so many other things that people could be putting their time and effort into, so that we could grow and more people can make money in esports. But I have to tell them, you're going to have to put your time in, unless you're lucky and you have a good name, and IPL picks you up and they decide to pay you. It's going to take quite some time to really make some money doing this, or find a way, like you said, Jason, find a way in which you can create a product or a service. See, service is key too, and now with streaming, there's a lot more opportunity for services to take place. I just saw something today in one of the channels I'm in, Six Pool Gaming or something like this.
Yeah, they just launched it.
They just launched, and it looks like it's a service of some sort.
Wait, Six Pool finally launched?
Yeah, they finally went live, like today or yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, so
Why are you laughing?
That's a service that can make money.
They've had a launch page for a year and a half. I'm like,
years. It's been like a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. So,
holy crap.
I everyone the best.
No, go ahead. I was going to say something, if I can. Something comes to mind in all this that I think Jason said that really I have to agree with. A lot of people get involved in esports because they want to make a living gaming in some capacity. They want to work around gaming. And I think whatever makes someone interested in competitive gaming, or be a competitor, their ego, whatever, be honest, I'd like to see less gamers involved in this and more business people. Yeah. I mean, the great story in esports is always, oh my God, the suits fucked it up. Look what happened at Championship Gaming Series. We don't need them. I really disagree with that. I disagree with the assessment. I disagree with all that. DJ Wheat may say, I was there, I know. You know what, I get it, but I really do disagree, right? Like, I'll put my professional credentials against anybody's when it comes to working in the real world. So when it comes to that, I think I also agree with what Jason said. We need both kinds. We need the people who grow esports, and the people who are going to grow esports are going to be the people who can bring partners outside of esports into esports, right? So if I go to General Mills or I go to AT&T and I say, General Mills, AT&T, this is what I want to do, right? And I want you to understand that this is a viable market. This is a niche of people who essentially, when we look at how people use social media today, they're pretty well plugged in, and they can be pretty good brand champions for you if we play our cards right? I think that there's some of that really needs. I mean, one of the reasons that I think VV Gaming as a brand never really, I don't care if the people on Team Liquid know who I am. They already know who we are, right? They're not the ones. I don't need them to like me more, right? I need them to visit my site literally about once a month. And I need to keep our core community. But the people who I want to come into esports, right? I want the people who don't know anything about this to get motivated to come into esports. Right. So like when somebody says, I don't think Destiny likes you, it's like, who? Right? When I'm sitting across from the chief learning officer from General Mills and I'm saying, hey, can I have your marketing guy's number because I have an idea? That's more important to me than 20,000 of Destiny's fans going, and he doesn't have that many for the record, but just use an example, then anything I can do to grow esports, right? You have to, the same thing about capital that Jason's talking about, we also have to think about human capital. Unlike money, human capital persistently recycled does not grow anything. We need to bring more capital into this place.
Yeah, we're just marketing to the same demographic if we just keep getting the same people all the time.
So when somebody says, Lord Jareth, you know, sometimes it appears like you're pretty irreverent about esports. Yes, because I can afford to be at this point. Even if they all hated me, the demographic pool is so tiny that it's not significant yet. I need to figure out how to get the person over there whose eyes are on traditional sports, or who's watching a movie, or who's just playing a game, or who's reading a book, or who's doing something not related to watching esports, and I need to figure out how to get them to watch esports, right? People make this mistake of going, so many people play my game. Okay, let's give an example. Call of Duty is a phenomenal example of what you need to understand about esports. I don't care how popular your game is. I care if my grandmother can watch it. You need to understand the difference between those things. Call of Duty is by far the most popular video game on the planet, whether you like it or not. Rephrase, at least Xbox Live. I don't have enough data to tell you, and neither do you, by the way, of telling me what the most popular game is, right? But I can tell you Call of Duty, by numbers, is really the most popular game on Xbox Live. And there are a lot of Xboxes on the planet. But I can't make that into an esports because it lacks a lot of significant features that makes it something that I can watch. And if you don't draw audiences, right, into watching a game and understanding it, it's not going to work. And by the way, there's an invisible clock ticking, right? So sometimes I get somebody come up to me and like, StarCraft's the biggest thing. Yeah, and Counter-Strike was the biggest thing. There's a technology evolution that's consistently happening. And this, which is big today, may not be big tomorrow. So we have this real responsibility to really think about what is esports, what is the brand of esports, and knowing that it's technology dependent, and knowing that because it's technology dependent, technology is going to change, we then have this sort of like, there should be a bit of humility there. Because yes, StarCraft is big, and I have a lot of faith in Riot Games and League of Legends. They're doing so many things right. They may be the poster child for esports in my mind right now, way past Blizzard in my mind. Right? I would gladly have that debate. I feel I have the preponderance of the evidence to make my argument, but I think that's not really a useful debate, but they're doing a lot of things really right, because I think when I talk to people at Riot Games, they understand that as much as I love having all these people play our games, when we look at the investment in esport, not the investment as a developer who's selling a product, right? There are a lot of successful games in the world. And League of Legends as a title is a successful game. Now League of Legends is looking at growing, it's looking at growth, and it's looking at esports as one of its growth. What I wish people would understand when they talk about esports is that esports is the act of eyeballs on a stream. That's esports. You playing a fucking video game competitively is not esports. That's not esports at all. You having a bunch of friends in a LAN location and saying we're esports is not esports. That is an illusion. You are delusional if you believe that. And if you think you've got it figured out, you're wrong. But if you've got eyeballs on a stream watching someone playing a video game, I don't care what that video game is, you have something. You have television, you have entertainment, you have esports. And if you don't do that, you're not esports. So I think it's important that we really make the distinction when we talk about what is esports, that it is eyeballs watching people play video games. Now, it may be competitive video games, right, as we start to define what esports is, but a bunch of people playing a competitive video game with no one watching is really not esports.
So,
All right.
to introduce, fantastic comment there, Jerry. So, I want to. There's two terms that I kind of want to introduce, and that's the concept of and that this goes back to growing the pie, right? And so the pie, goes bad over time. So there's the concept, and again the business term of diminishing returns. Diminishing returns is I can throw tons and tons and tons and tons of money at something, and it can be money, it can be eyeballs, it can be effort, it can be anything. Anything has a diminishing return, right? So a diminishing return, you get this huge bump, and then it kind of plateaus, and then diminishing return won't go down, but it'll definitely plateau, if not maybe just peak down a little bit, right? So diminishing return. So, and then the other side of that coin is eroding return. So in esports needs to be very, very careful of both. So diminishing return is Monster throwing, I'm saying Monster because I have a can of Monster right there, is Monster throwing $5 million at esports? Are they really going to get that return off of, you know, any more on the $5 million as they would, say, $1 million? Eroding return is esports not growing their pie. So that pie gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So we've got two efforts coming against us. We've got diminishing return, throwing lots of money, hoping that we get a bigger return, which we won't, unless we grow the pie. Otherwise, that pie naturally erodes, which is eroding return. So kind of two thoughts and theories on that.
All right, John.
Jerry, if no one watched baseball, would that not make it a sport?
To be honest with you, right? And I think that point that you make, right, the semantical, and I'll take that question, actually. I'm glad you asked it.
Right? And that's why I asked it, because I figured you have a good answer for it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Does it make it a sport, right? Does it make it a sport? By Webster's definition, or as something that we can take business action on? If we're talking about pure definition, I'll give you baseball. I'll give you competitive hopscotch, if you want to call it a sport. Competitive jump roping. You can call it all a sport. But if I'm talking about, and I hope everyone else is talking about, is people making a living in the pursuit of gaming, and not on the development end, but on the actual act of gaming. Right? And we're not talking about people who are using a video game as a way to make money on YouTube just by the fact that they're making commentary over a video game. Which, by the way, I think everybody wants to be real cautious about something here. We still have a lot of rights issues that are specters in the future. Right? Major League Gaming, IGN, all of them, they don't own the right to this digital world. Whereas in football and baseball, you can't really own the football and baseball per se the way you can own the digital space, right? The NFL can't shut down every stadium on the planet by pulling the plug on something, but it can very much happen in the world of StarCraft. If Blizzard turns off its servers, you're not going to play StarCraft. But you can't stop people from playing soccer and other things. Different point, but I just want to bring up the unique challenges that we have when we're talking about esports, defined as making a living playing a game competitively that people watch, which is the necessary part to make a living at it. Right?
So to be clear, your definition, or the definition that you were describing, the comment that you were describing for esports, is really more business-centric. Like, how is esports as a business?
Well, look, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. If we all, right now, a lot of people are subsidizing gamers, right? I think we really missed this point. There's an illusion right now of professional gaming that needs to get fucking shot down. I am tired of hearing, because look, if anybody's an adult in this space, right, who's ever actually invested money or gets it, you're going to start chuckling, right? I really appreciate, no matter how pretty EG or Complexity's house is, it's still somebody subsidizing gaming, right? It's not profitable. We need to get it there, and we're not going to get it there until we get more eyes on it. So let's start about what kind of a funny little joke this is. Here we go. So a whole bunch of investors invest in Major League Gaming. They don't get shit for it. That group is in for about $70 million. That $70 million has been feeding people, right? And we're calling that an industry, right? But that's not an industry. Destiny streaming and making money is not an esports industry. Give me 100 Destinies, maybe we can start talking. But until then, no. So even the fact that you just asked me, or you mean the business definition, does any other fucking definition matter? Put your wife on the phone. I'm sure she'll have something to say about what she cares about. Don't you all want to feed yourselves doing this?
Yes.
Well, if you do, stop making it look like, oh, I care what the fuck the community says. I care about what the people who don't know about esports think, and I care about them caring, right? If that doesn't happen, you really are all sort of deluding yourselves, right? Because it's the people who are investing their own money right now, right? The investors in Major League Gaming, IGN's investment in the IPL, Craig Levine and the sponsors that support ESEA, the people like myself and other owners of organizations who put their own money into it. We're all subsidizing this shit. There's no industry. I think the sooner we realize, right, wow, we have a lot of work to do. And the work that we have to do is not getting somebody on a forum to like us, but can you imagine if we could flip a switch and every person who claims to be an esports fan all of a sudden became an ambassador for esports, and they reached out to every family member, every friend they had at school, everybody they knew, and they said, come on, I'm going to watch you. I want you to watch something with me. Do you know how many stupid videos you've asked people to watch? How many useless GIFs you've shared on the internet? But when I really ask people, have you ever taken just one classmate or a few classmates and got them down and held a party and said, hey, I want to teach you why I love esports? I want to show you why I care about a personal player? Those numbers start to diminish greatly. So, yes, I care about a lot of the drama that esports people care about because I have to be knowledgeable. But to me, to be honest, it's a distraction from what I find to be the real work, which is how do I get that kid right now who's watching Jersey Shore to turn Jersey Shore off and watch esports. And you can write that person off, but by the time that the change happens, you might be too old or your wife is too tired to let you keep doing this. And if that happens, well, then you become another person who really was passionate about esports and could never live the dream. And to me, the goal has to be, how do we grow it? And I think Major League Gaming and all the sponsors, and I think this is important, right? It's not just, right? Somebody says to me, Jerry, who would be the best, like, who's the holy grail of sponsors? I said, man, get us McDonald's. Get McDonald's in the space. That's the holy grail. Because the thing, McDonald's all of a sudden says to the world, we're sponsoring esports. Nobody has that reach. Nobody that I can think of can hit that demographic the way McDonald's can, globally, in an instant. They put I don't know what. They put Major League logos on their fucking cups for 6 months, and they have done more for esports than anybody else could imagine. Right?
Can I
go ahead? No offense. Real quick, Jason. I want to throw out one thing that I'm not necessarily endorsing the fast food industry, or do I like fast food. I think it's an important disclaimer to make, but I'm talking about pure business marketing reach. But Jason, continue.
I think that somebody watched Disney's press release today about their marketing. Did you see this by chance?
I missed that.
Disney in 2015, Disney will no longer open their advertising up to children on all of their networks to anybody that pays. They have to meet the health and safety requirements of the U.S. government, not saying a whole lot, in order for them to market a food product to children on their network. Okay. So anyway, it was more of an aside. So this gets really, really interesting. And so Jerry and I have a very, very like mind, but I'm going to combat him a little bit on one point here.
Right.
And it's that I feel like he's mixing his terms. There's an industry where McDonald's is very important to esports, but to Destiny, Destiny's 20,000 not viewers, Destiny's viewers are his most important thing to him. So in a way, Destiny or Day9 or Wheat or anybody is their own industry, right? So, and again, this goes back to what is our profit expectations of esports. So I come from a theater background. I was in theater in high school, then I went into the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, and went right back into the theater, right? And when I was in theater, my profit expectations were vastly different than what they were when I started working for Oprah or started working for Major Motion Pictures or when I started working for who I work for now in DC, right? So my profit motivations were different, but also my profit expectations were different. And it's because there's a balance between passion and money. And the less passion that a job takes, the more money you need to make in order to justify that. The more passion you can put into something, the less money that you have to make. So for me, and where I think esports thrives, and I know that Jerry agrees with this, is that as long as we are all happy and passionate, and so long as we are each individually trying to grow that pie and getting that guy to turn off, Snooki and watch esports is all very, very important. But is McDonald's important for me? Will I do jumping jacks if McDonald's comes in as an esports of MLG? I'll be really happy for MLG or for esports in general. But will I be more happy if I figure out that your show gets 100,000 views and you guys made some bank off of a YouTube VOD? Which one am I going to be? And I understand that one is temporal and one is probably got a longer temporal frame. But I think that we need to keep the short-term and the long-term view in focus. And right now, short-term is make my living equal to passion, And my long-term view is grow esports, make it big, get McDonald's, and maybe quit my day job. Those are two different things that we keep confusing.
Why is this the conversation always about? And I understand the eyeballs. I understand business. I've done things. I've obviously worked outside of esports. For me, I come from a sports background. So for me, esports is defined as that competitive passion, right? Not just as a pro gamer. I've never been a pro gamer, and I probably won't be. I don't have time. But for me, when I think of the best way to grow esports, it doesn't start at the top. I would love to have McDonald's on board. Yep. Trust me, and I love their food. So, and I'll make that disclaimer. But for me, it's about structure, and and if it's always about what's at the top, if it's always about how can I get this sponsor to sponsor this event or this series of events, we've been down that road before, and it didn't work, and we busted it because there was nothing underneath of it holding it up. And for me, coming from a sports background and running an organization that runs events, and having played in a sport in which it was very much like esports, it had a very interesting start, and then they made some structural changes from the bottom up as opposed to the top down that helped build it. There's a reason that soccer is so popular is because millions of kids play it, and then they grow up liking it. And in order for soccer to be popular in the United States, MLS had to start slow, build a fan base from the bottom up, get those kids who are playing it at a very base level to enjoy it and to know what it is, and it's continuing to grow. It may take some time, obviously, before it gets to the size and scope of what it would be in England or in Europe. But for me, when I think about growing esports, it's a combination of all of that. It takes 4 legs for a table to stand. I mean, technically you can do it with 3, but in this case, it's going to take 4 legs. And for sure, one of them is the media, the eyeballs, and another is getting outside sponsors to come in. For me, one of the most important ones is the structure from the bottom up. I mean, we could have McDonald's, we could have Coca-Cola, we could have Pepsi competing with another event, we could have Red Bull, we could have all of these sponsors running all of these large events, and the minute they go away, we have nothing. And we're starting from scratch, and we have to start and find another group of sponsors. The 4th leg may be, and I haven't really defined all 4 legs, but the 4th leg may be reaching a demographic that's just on the cusp, and that's the Facebook users. That's those that play Facebook games. That's those that game in a much more casual way, and reaching that demographic. So if we reach McDonald's, and then we reach out to the people that are just on that cusp, and we get more eyeballs and more sponsors involved, but we can have all of that, but if we don't have a structure in place and all of that just goes away and fades away and people are like, well, that was fun for 6 months, then we're just starting over every time. So for me, the way we build esports is from the bottom up, and we start with a solid structure. Yep. That's the way I see it. It's not discounting everything else that needs to be done. It's just that for me, that's my focus.
Yeah, I mean,
something I think I disagree with, and I do, because wow, this is hard to explain, but McDonald's gets into the space because there is a good business reason for them to get in the space. If they get out of the space, it's because there's good business reason for them to get out of the space. Our job, to me, Jason, I really do think McDonald's makes good business decisions. I really do. I mean, that's why they're so successful. So if they decide to leave the space, it's because there's a good business decision on their end to leave the space. To me,
okay, 15 seconds. Okay, so that specifically, McDonald's makes very, very good business choices, but there's a huge difference between McDonald's coming into the space and making a good commitment to which to us seems like a commitment to them, which to them is a 2-year test. So, and it's a very dangerous trap.
Yeah. But you're missing my point here. I'm saying that our job, right? Our job, again, I am not going to look at this as I want to see esports be mainstream and be as prevalent as any sport. That's my goal. You all may or may not disagree with that, but if you do disagree with it, I respect it. I'm telling you my goal. My goal then says we want to make esports as attractive to McDonald's so they stay here for business reasons. I don't want them to marry me. I don't want them to fuck me. I don't want them to like me. I want them addicted to the value they get from our environment. So to me, it's about making esports as as attractive as it can be so that all those organizations want to remain, right? It's got to have value. There's a reason organizations back events. It's because it provides them value, right? Sometimes that value is corporate citizenship in the form of we're contributing and we're giving back, and that's good for our brand image. But I want them to get the total package, that when they're involved in esports, they're here because esports is giving them real business value. So
but don't you want sustainability? I mean, don't you want longevity, though, too?
But that's us. That's
yeah,
up to us.
I agree. Maybe that's up to us. And that's why I say it's got to have structure.
When you say longevity, I think to myself, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But we're the ones, the esports industry is the one that creates that longevity by making sure that there are plenty of fans. That's what's going to be our longevity. So if we don't do that, right, it doesn't matter. So the situation you created, John, where somebody comes in and somebody leaves, that story to me is a story about esports not creating long-term business value.
Right.
Esports wasn't ready for CGS and Fox and everything else. It just wasn't there. I'm sure there are a few Counter-Strike people who want to disagree with me, but you know what? History and proof is on my side. They quit. You didn't get them addicted to esports, so they remained. They left. To be afraid of that happening again is like being afraid of being like, does this dress make me look fat? No, fat makes you look fat, right? It isn't that they left because it was they didn't like you. They left because you couldn't provide business value. Our job is to provide business value. And no matter what, whether we love that cold business reality world or not, that is how the real world works.
Right, but I see so many people thinking that business value, like you're saying, and you're so right, that it's our responsibility to create some sort of sustainable model that these sponsors are like, this is great, we want in. We see a value in this, and we're going to stick around. And if they don't stick around, you're right, it's on us. Well, but my problem is that I see so many people jumping on like, oh, sweet, MLG got Dr. Pepper to sponsor and blah, 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 and they just sit back and assume that that's somehow growing esports.
Well,
that's somehow sustaining esports. It's only supporting it.
Right.
I will give you probably the most controversial thing that I believe. So that way we have something to really chew on. And you're all welcome to disagree with me. And you're all welcome to fire back at me that you disagree with me completely. But I'm just going to be honest. The problem in esports to me is twofold. One is a technological problem that we can't change. The other one is a human capital problem. We don't have enough of the right people in esports to make it grow. No offense, but we have a lot of young, inexperienced people with a whole lot of passion that don't know shit about anything. And I'm going to be the honest guy to say that. They don't know shit about business. They've never seen nor written a statement of work. They've never given a formal proposal. If I had a dime for every kid who thinks me selling me a PowerPoint deck as a proposal, I'd chuckle, because that's not how the real world works. Right? And it's not understanding the sales cycle, how business works, what it means. And there are a few people who get it. Right? You can see it in the way EG operates. I know Scott and Alex and some of the people on their team have that real-world experience that can make that out. Jason Lake has real-world experience, and so does some of his team. But that's the minority. The vast majority of these people, do you know, if I had a dime for every person who had a website and I form my own organization and they have a bunch of credit cards and then in a year they're gone, it's not interesting. That's not an industry. And my point is we don't have enough of the right people. I'll tell you something else. I'm going to throw a shot across someone's bow that's going to piss people off again, but I really don't give a fuck. Look, Quantic Gaming is a prime example, right, of trial and error and rebranding themselves. I think the latest one was they're the people's team. They're not the fucking people's team, right? And they didn't fix Destiny. And this is nothing against Mark or his team. Mark has some experience in the world, but the rest of his team does not. And I don't know if he's able to manage everything. But the point is, as an outsider, right, I do look to the Major League Gamings. I do look to the IPLs. I do look to GSLs. I look to the places where real money is invested, and they're able to do real things. And we have to start to strategize and go, how do we get more people, right, doing the right things? And I think Jason does the right thing with iHeart Esports, and I really like Jason's idea of being my words, not his, a sort of Amazon.com for esports products, because it'll make it a lot easier for me to support the companies that invest, market, create products for esports. I like that idea. We have to look for those right people. Now, whether people like Jason, or they like me, or they like Sundance, or they like Alex Garfield from EG, or Jason Lake, and the list goes on, you need to be around people who get it. And whether the cold, hard reality of what they tell you about doing business gels with your worldview or not, it's real. I have a much easier time molding all of you and shaping your view and getting you better practice to deal in the business world than I would ever changing the rest of the business world. To make it clear again, I don't want us to be skateboarding. I don't want us to be an extreme sport. I want us to be up there with tennis and golf and NASCAR. If you don't share the same goals as me, I can respect that. You can say, Jerry, that's not for me. But what I'm driving toward is NASCAR. I'm not driving toward skateboarding. And I don't believe we need to be edgy or we need to maintain some element of our edgy culture that's independent. I think we should try to be NASCAR. If we fall short, we end up at skateboarding. But if we shoot for skateboarding, we end up in fucking CGS land with 3 or 4 people believing they hold all the answers. No offense to DJ Wheat or Jason Lake or Craig Levine, all people I respect. But to be honest, none of those people really have great deep business experience. I'm just going to call it the way I see it, right? I'll put their resume out in front of you and say, I'll give Craig Levine the most of the 3 when it comes to business experience. And I'm talking this trash not because I want to piss people off. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I do feed off of it. But the real truth of the matter is, right, we don't have enough experienced business people in this space. And until we do, we need to start embracing those suits a little bit more, right? And I don't mean the kind of suits like Matt Bromberg comes to my mind, the former CEO of MLG. That guy was an idiot. He was an AOL flunky. He came into MLG, and in many ways, he kind of fucked a few things up. Sundance, much better example. My point being is we need more of the right people. And we need more of the right people to be focused on generating wealth and creating business value, not concerned whether or not the Team Liquid community likes them. No offense, that's not a benchmark of success. What's a benchmark of success is bringing those outside dollars and outside eyeballs in my mind, because I want to drive the car toward NASCAR, not toward skateboarding. That's it. That's just my point.
That's a very good point. and I think I think any of us that are having any sort of disagreements on the exact right way to do it, I think we all make good points on a way that it can be done, or parts of it that should definitely be addressed. I mean, we can't only put all the emphasis on the media and how it looks to outside people, although that's a very important one, and we can't just put it all in creating some sort of structure, you know, some sort of semi-pro league and working your way up, because you could do all of that and have no one looking at it and it wouldn't mean anything. So I think all of us offer something that's very important to growing esports as a whole. And like you said, Jerry, it really depends on all of us. You know, if we just sit back and expect it to happen, it's not going to happen.
I mean, look, and I'm going to say this too. I'm passionate about the VV gaming community. I'm passionate about certain game communities that I like, but I can't be passionate about every game community. And I think we all can agree with that. And we need a lot of leaders in each game community and across esports to do a lot of good things. That's why I say we need more intelligent, experienced people in the space of esports to want to get involved and try to shape it. I'd rather see 10. Another one of the things that may sound like a controversy to people, but I would love to have me and Jason and a few other people who have real business experience. I'd love for us to have, and this is something that is in the real world. In the real world, there's something called SCORE. It's a society basically of retired business executives who basically advise other people who want to be entrepreneurs. I'm letting you all know that I'm here to provide anybody who wants that experience. And as you can see from Jason and I, we have similar goals, but we have different skills. Jason is great at some things that I am not that good at, and I'm sure it's true vice versa. But if you put me and Jason and 3 or 4 other people on a panel, and you come to us as a young entrepreneur, we can provide you, I think, a lot of value in helping you not make those same silly mistakes. Those are the kind of pillars of those are the kind of almost like institutions we need in esports at a professional level. I don't care whether you love Jason or you love Sundance or you know, Craig Levine, or I could keep dropping names, or Kim Rom from SteelSeries or whoever. But if we could get a panel of people together who have real world experience that could advise young entrepreneurs, we've got to start investing in our own people. This is why I say it's a human capital problem. I think we've got to get that experience, because it's either we get and I want you guys to imagine this. Right now we have person X running and falling and then trying to get up. Person Y running, falling, and trying to get up. Everybody, whether it's ego or passion, wants to do it themselves. And as noble as that is, and as much as we need it, we also need a way to guide them, right? They can still have their own brands, they can still have their own identity, but we need a way to better guide them. And I think there isn't enough investment in bringing real-world experiences into esports so that those people can be better equipped for success. That's just why I keep focusing on that.
All right. Good stuff, Jerry. Well, I think I'm not sure we're going to get to some of these topics that we originally intended, but I think, what we ended up talking about is really, really great. But I wanted to let folks know that we're going to be doing a Q&A probably the last 15-20 minutes of the show. So you guys start adding me on Skype. My ID is ChanmanV, so I'll drag you into the call so you can ask your questions live to these guys. I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that are wanting to kind of participate in this discussion. So yep, here we go. We got somebody already calling in. But I want to do one topic, at least in regards to VVV, Jerry, just so we can at least get one thing in with VVV before we start taking calls.
Absolutely.
And I'll just choose one right here. Let's basically, what's the biggest challenge, I guess, that you've faced with VVV to date? Just regarding any games or just regarding VVV as a whole or anything like that. Just any challenge that you think, a great lesson was learned and, maybe viewers or even just other teams can learn from it.
Man, I think we set a pretty aggressive challenge from the beginning in being different. I mean, we deeply need everyone that does what EG and Complexity do, which is to aggressively pursue the top players and make sure that they can make a living playing games. And I think that EG and Complexity and Dignitas and Fnatic, these are organizations that have been pretty staple in the community and have done some great things. I think that's important. We chose to not do that. We chose to invest in the B players to help them develop and be much more of a talent factory. So we took a different route than others did. And I think that's always been a branding challenge for us, because when someone grades us next to EG, they'll say, well, EG has a lot more accomplishments in StarCraft and Counter-Strike and the games that matter. That's true, and I would never disagree with that. Of course, we never set out to do that. But by trying to be a talent factory, we have become the most accomplished console organization on the planet, with top 4 LAN finishes on 4 continents across 12 titles. And we don't even push that down anybody's throat. It's just like something we know internally. We know we've got a great track record of success. It's something our sponsors know, like SteelSeries and other partners. But I don't want someone to come to us because they believe they're going to be a better player because they're a part of VV Gaming. It's a much different model. And so that's been one of our toughest challenges. And if I were to put a second challenge right underneath that, it's really having a tough time sometimes. Like David Ting, Sundance, Adam Epicella at MLG, it's easy to deal with people in the business world. Sometimes when I deal with an organization and the people in charge of it are a bit younger and they don't have real-world experience, it's a lot harder for them to get some of the things that we do. Or someone will come to me and say, I don't see why SteelSeries backs you guys in StarCraft. None of your StarCraft players have ever broken top 32. To which it's a lot bigger than that. It's a lot more of the total package of what we offer them. So I think those are probably our 2 biggest challenges as VV Gaming, is how we brand ourselves and getting the message out there about how we're different without preaching it, without trying to beat people up or saying you need to understand that what we do is important. Like I said earlier, as long as our sponsors understand and our community understands, I'm confident that we're heading in the right direction.
Good deal. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love about VVV is really y'all's, y'all's ability to, or commitment to the academy, and haven't really heard that much from the academy recently. So I kind of wanted to ask you, what's the current state of the academy, and
That's a good question, because we learned a lot. We had come around at the same time Complexity had, and we were thinking the same thing. And the one thing we found was that there was a large focus on players being able to get to an MLG event, and I don't want to ruin the next iteration of our academy before the people who are going to be involved with it, we formally launch it. We're going to formally launch it June 18th this month. It's going to be something a lot different. So instead of looking at the short-term goal of players wanting to get to an MLG event to quote-unquote prove themselves, we really started to look at training environments. What did training environments look like? And I don't mean physical environments like being in a house, but what were the elements that needed to go in for talent to excel at? And we said, you know what? So we've quietly gone around and we found players who are going to be a part of this. So we're not going to like, here's the academy, come join it. Here's the academy, here's our first cohort, this is what our goal is, this is what we're going to be measured by, let's say if we're successful. So we're going to do that first in StarCraft again, but we've also been quietly working on a model for League of Legends. I personally am much more interested in League of Legends because I find it a wonderfully unique challenge to teach people to work on a team. The one thing that I love about League of Legends that StarCraft doesn't have, unless we change what we call competitive StarCraft right now, which is 1v1, is I'm much more interested in team sports. So I'm a football, hockey kind of guy, less a tennis, golf kind of guy. I love team dynamics. So really looking at how we can start to teach players how to operate on a team, which is something they'll need to work in the real world anyway, but really doing it in such a way that they take, because there's a certain amount of skill that players inherently have, and we tend to focus on the ones that come best prepared to excel at a game. But we can all agree that we can think in the history of and we just focus on esports from Counter-Strike on, we can think of a lot of players who had an enormous amount of skill, but generally did not really help their team at all. They were more a detriment than a help to their team. Well, I'm not looking for those players, but we want to create a structure where we can teach the skills needed and the perspective needed to best operate on a team. And if we can get more and more individuals kind of buying into that, practicing it and doing it, I think will benefit team esports, not just single-player esports. So, yeah, our commitment to that is really, really good. And to be honest with you, our feedback that we get from people outside of esports is really positive. People saying, you know, I would like my brand associated with that, because that's something that I can then spin to the academy that VV Gaming has is the kind of academy that teaches real-world skills and aligns it with the passion of young gamers. I know then that VV Gaming is both, one, preparing people to excel in their passions, but also, should their passions change, they'll have real-world skills they can take elsewhere. So, yeah, we're pretty excited about that, and I appreciate you asking us about it.
Awesome. No, that's really, really great to hear, because that's one of the things that really jazzes me is you know, training talent here. You know, and so I think that's been a huge focus of this show. You know, with a lot of stuff that we've already talked about. So I think that's really great. Okay, let's take some questions. You guys up for talking to some of the viewers and taking some of their questions?
It'd be awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. John, did you say you cut and pasted a question? I don't actually. See that
I did.
Okay, I don't.
Skype, but you don't want to mess with it because something will get screwed up.
No, I actually don't see it. So oh, there it is. Once you ask it.
Okay. Ban Massey I2TY. And it just says he's a big fan of Jason, and he wants to know when the next episode. When is the next episode? What else can we expect from you in the near future? And wondering, how did you like the production value of the wildfire scene in episode 9 of Game of Thrones?
Oh no, spoilers!
Why don't you clarify, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about the esports production, you know, episodes that you have.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the esports production videos. Every time I talk about it, every single time from the time I started until the eternity, I will give the same shout out. I started that esports production value video series because of Greg in Control Robbins. Period. I read his post, and at the time, iHeart Esports, I think, had just launched maybe a couple of weeks prior. And I read that post, and I said, how can I actually be additive to this community, not being a player, anything like that? What are the skill sets I have? I have my skill set in business, and I have my skill set in production. That's really, that's the value of Jason. And so I just decided, and around that same time, they had all the pitchforks were coming out around NASL and all that stuff, and I just decided, hey, let's add a constructive voice to this production value discussion, and so I started I now have to do this, which breaks my heart, a weekly. Because I've not been so awesome lately. A production podcast on esports production values. I try and do it every Sunday, but consistency is the son of a bitch, which goes to this first part of this question. So in the next thing that I'm working on is actually my last episode. I started doing something really fun that I really liked. I'm fortunate enough to get a decent number of viewers watching the thing live as I do it on Twitch, and so afterwards I typically stick around, and then we just do kind of like question and answer, and so a lot of people, I do a lot of kind of business Q&A, and I normally recommend a book, business book. I'm a business book junkie, so I'm going to start doing that more regularly. After the shows, after the episode, I'll do an extra 5 or 10 minutes of just kind of right then and there, like a weekly business tip, or just be really short, and then just some open Q&A from the people. So that's what to expect next. Is I'm going to add that business element to the production.
So when do you plan on analyzing this show?
In my mind right now. The whole time I've been sitting like this, and I'm like, man, I make this weird, like, shape as I sit. I need to sit more properly. So it's such a funny. Yeah,
this is like the first show I actually broke out this mic too, because I knew Mr. Esports Production would be here, so my sound better be decent.
Your sounds, for me, like to sit through Skype, so I don't know what it's like, but your sounds awesome. Actually.
Cool.
It's quite good.
Okay, actually, so guys, again, for some reason we're lacking callers today. Usually people call in like it's nobody's business. So Skype, add me on Skype. Skype ID is ChanmanV, and I will pull you into the call. I have another question here. If somebody who doesn't have a mic, question for Jason again. After seeing your presentation on MVP and startups, I wanted to ask what specific tips, tactics, and strategies did or do you use when creating iHeart Esports? Also, how do you deal with the lashback from communities like Reddit and TL? And with your limited resources, what do you focus most on as far as product development, PR relationships, developing your brand and marketing, etc.?
Big questions.
Yeah, that's like 3 questions there. So
let's do backlash because that's really, really quick.
Okay. Yep.
I don't care. The best advice that I read was from Day 9 when he said, "I don't read the feedback," like on the Reddit and stuff like that. It just I'm not, Jerry knows this, like, if you don't like me, fine. If I do something that's, like, messed up, then maybe I deserve some pitchforks, but I try not to do that, and I also don't engage the trolls. Tim Ferriss actually has a fantastic blog, or kind of a presentation that he did of an adaptation of there's an actual SOP, standard operating procedure, that the Air Force uses, and I've got the image, I've actually given a lecture on it myself, that the Air Force uses when deciding when to engage in social media, when to engage an individual on social media. And it's just this flow chart, and it's like, can you win? Are you right? Are they right? Are they wrong? Are they going to disagree with you no matter what? And based on that flowchart is how you engage. There's lots of comments. I don't know why. People are going to like me or hate me, but I think most people like me just because I'm always constructive, so I'm always adding stuff to the conversation, and I try not to be a dick. So, forum trolls, I've not really had a problem with that, and I think that it is a personality thing. Business. So stickers. The stickers were a very, very intentional thing. It's all about the MVP. The guy referencing a YouTube video that I did. I gave a lecture last week at a business local startup thing here in DC. Minimum viable product. How do I know what to do? What to start? Minimum viable product. What can I do tomorrow? Screw tomorrow. What can I do tonight to launch a product? And stickers. Stickers were fast, they were easy, they were one-sided, they were light, I can ship them around the world, I can produce them in a week, and I can produce them where I'm not going to go broke if I sell 0, right? So if you're looking to start any business, I don't care if it's a tournament or anything, do something tonight, do something tomorrow, or to use Seth Godin's word, just ship it. So best business advice ever, just ship it. And there's actually a book, Business Book Junkie, by Seth Godin called Poke the Box. and it literally is just that. I've talked about this in my episodes before. Poke the box. Just do something. Just start. Just do something. Most failure begins in the world because you don't start, right? So execution is everything. Okay, so,
Yep.
do something. And if you don't do something, then don't bitch at me because you're not successful.
Yeah, make mistakes. Just
Totally.
it's the best way to learn things. Okay, we
So
got to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll do so the 15 seconds. So a perfect example is my production podcast. I'm sitting here critiquing people on their production value. And my very first episode had a crappy camera with a crappy sound. I had audio lag, and it was a terrible, terrible production itself. So did I wait until my production was perfect, or did I just do something? I poked the box. So.
Awesome. All right, we got a call here, so we're gonna have to take him. Seth.
I know Seth.
Hopefully he answers. He's got a question for you, Jerry. So.
Oh no.
Seth.
I'm scared of questions. Didn't I tell you that?
Seth, you there?
Hi.
Hey, welcome to Climbing the Ladder.
Hey. I have a question for Jerry. And yeah, but before I get into that question, I just I just want to say that. Oh, hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
You're here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I am listening to it too. So I'm hearing you guys on lag.
Oh, right.
Okay, so first thing I just want to say, Jason, you're freaking awesome. And I really appreciate all of the work that you put into the community. It has been a great encouragement to me. Jerry, I have a question for you. I'm someone with absolutely zero business experience. The only experience I have is being involved in my industry and watching my successful boss, do his thing. But what he's doing is not related at all to what I'm doing, except that we're both dealing in the same product. So, as I'm someone who is interested in getting into the community, specifically because, like you said, there needs to be money in the community, and I feel like I have a good way to provide small organizations a way to make money by merchandising. As I'm looking to get into it, as someone who doesn't have any business experience, what do I really need to be doing? What do I need to be focusing on to make sure that I am successful?
Great question. The first thing that always comes down to two really important things, Seth. I think the first thing is making sure that you're able to articulate and define the value that you're going to provide a business. Right? So it's about value. That's probably the most important word. When I think about partnering with someone, what value are they going to provide me? For example, yes, SteelSeries can give our players products. Yes, SteelSeries could give money. But for me, the most value comes from SteelSeries being able to open a Rolodex and connect me with people that are going to make me grow VV's brand. So value is, you probably, Seth, can offer a business a lot more value than you know in the beginning. And as you meet more and more people who you pitch your idea to, I don't know if you've ever taken a photograph or if you've ever done anything and you've said to somebody, what do you think? And they say it looks good. Those are the worst people in the world to be around. You want the people who are going to ask you tough questions, who are never going to say it's good, it's okay, but they're going to start to ask a lot of tough questions. So with that, trying to define your value, find the people who are going to ask you a lot of tough questions. Remember what Jason said about poke the box? Don't worry about getting it right. Go out there and say, this is how I think it's going to work. This is how I think it's going to add value. This is how I think it's going to be successful. And listen to the people who are your critics first. They're real important allies. Now, again, if everybody tells you bad things, maybe that's a sign to quit. But you always want to look for the critics. They're so important. And in the business world, you'll sometimes hear someone say, well, what's your value proposition? How are you proposing to add value to what I'm doing? That's really important, right? And I think a lot of people think business is about creating money, which on a very novice, basic way it is. But really, business is about negotiating, and creating situations where both you and I win, right? And we call that win-win as a cliche, but I think it really is an art form. It's about making sure that the relationship I establish with you, to me, the best business relationship is the one where we both get value, whether that value is one of us getting money and the other one getting a service, or one person getting money and the other getting a product. But we both have a great relationship at that level, what you might traditionally call the pure business value. But we have a great relationship where I'm invested in your success as a person, as an organization. When I'm talking to Jason and I hang out with Jason, I'm invested in his success because he's given me a ton of great ideas, right? And that's important. And I feel like when he's giving me ideas, he's invested in me. He cares about Jerry and VVV Gaming. Does it really take that much effort from him? Look, I'm not grading Jason on his effort. I'm grading on him the value he provides me. And if Jason can give me great ideas right off the top of his head, that's fantastic. So Seth, you want to be able to articulate that value and taking Jason's advice, doing it as quickly as possible. And you might hear a lot of people say, yeah, that sounds cool. But the most important people are going to be the ones who kind of get where you're coming from, and they keep giving you obstacles to your success. Not like dicks, but they're like, I don't know, what about this? I don't know, what about this? And you want to have that armor to say, And so to me, I like those people, Seth, because they make me go back to the drawing board and go, I don't have a good answer for that. I need to have one, right? Even if you don't think you've solved the problem completely, keep poking the box. Find a better answer. If you're passionate and believe in what you're doing, keep trying. Because sometimes, Seth, it's about how you presented it or the language you use to describe it that sometimes is how you get set back. So I hope there's a lot in there, and I know you said where to start, but Jason was right. Poke the box. Get out there. Tell people why you're valuable to them. And most importantly, once you tell them, please listen as they poke holes. Or what they're going to do to you, Seth, is they're going to reveal the obstacles you have to overcome. And I'm going to give you a quick example of what it sounds like. Hey, Jerry, I want to put the VV logo on our controllers, and we're going to sell them everywhere. Are you interested? I'm not really sure how that's going to add value to us. Right? And in that guy's head, it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to put your logo on this controller for free. Yeah, but you haven't really told me how it's going to help me. And you're like, isn't it obvious? No, it's not obvious. Tell me. Well, everyone who buys that is going to see your brand. Well, I don't want to break this to you, but the people who are going to buy that controller would have to know what my brand means in order to buy it. So you haven't sold me yet. And they'll walk away frustrated. They're like, he doesn't fucking get it. And it's not that I don't get it. It's you're not listening to me, right? You haven't sealed the deal. You haven't showed me the value yet. I'm really not being a dick. I'm not even being facetious, but I'll be honest with you. Here's how you could tell me you're going to add value. Tell me you're going to put the VV controller on the VV logo on a controller, and you're going to go out there in the world and you're going to market that controller, and you're going to give me X amount for what you sell. And all I have to do is license the VV logo. Well, now it's a lot different. Now I don't have to do a lot of work, and now my evaluation isn't who's going to monitor it, who's going to work with you. I have less manpower. Now I've got to worry that you won't do damage to the brand. So now I got to look at, okay, that's a pretty good deal. He gets to sell controllers to VVV fans. I don't have to do a lot. He promises to own the whole system. Now I've got to know, can he do it? So now I'm going to start asking technical questions. Well, how are you going to design it? Who's going to design it? How many are you going to make in your first production? What kind of controllers? Where are you purchasing them from? What kind of transfusion method are you using to get the design on the logo? Are you going to do this in-house? Who are your employees? Are you a company? I'm going to ask you a lot of tough business questions. And you're going to be like, man, I'm just a startup, dude. I just have an idea. I'd be like, cool. But until you can answer all those questions, I'm probably not going to even trust you with my brand, no matter if you promised all that. So again, it's about knowing that someone who's got experience is going to ask you a lot of tough questions. And if you look at them as a critic or an adversary, you're missing the learning aspect. So if you come to me, Seth, with your idea, I would be asking you all kinds of tough questions because I'm treating you like an adult. I respect your passion. Not because I want to be a dick, not because I want to say no. I let almost no stone go unturned. If someone comes to me with an idea, I will listen to it. And sometimes the idea will be a failing, and they'll miss something, and I'll try to explain it. They won't get it. I'll be like, it's really good, but it's not for us. Maybe go talk to EG, talk to Complexity. It might be better for them, right? And that's my polite way of saying I'm not necessarily interested. But make that business value, Seth. That's the most important thing. And listen to those resistances, because if you're going to do anything, you're going to have to sell it, and you got to listen to sell.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Seth. Great question. Great advice. So, Jerry, I really like that esports equivalent for scores.
Yeah,
you guys should really do that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that would benefit, like guys like Seth here, right? Would totally benefit from it.
Well, I know Jason and I are both really busy, but we'll be in Anaheim, and maybe it's something over some drinks. Jason will bat around if we find time.
So, Jerry, can I break your heart a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not going to Anaheim.
Why? That's a hard question to ask on air. You're going to be missed. I'll tell you that, my friend. You'll be missed.
Yeah, I had the best intentions, and I'll tell you offline.
All right, we'll talk later. All right. Back to you, Chris. Sorry.
Okay, let's see. Everybody, well, it's funny because I had two people to ask questions lined up, and you answered all of them during that answer. So let's see. Are there any other questions on the stream chat, guys? More questions. We need more questions. John, you have a question?
Do I have a question?
Yeah, you usually have
questions.
questions.
I have a shit ton of them, but
ask them.
No, Jerry just keeps answering them before I can ask them. No, they're good. I really don't have anything right now.
Note to self, Jerry: ask smaller questions. Well, what I hope happens really is that people take that advice and they start to rethink, like, and I might be wrong, forgive me, but some of the people that I encounter working in VV gaming, they're really passionate about esports. They come for me to advice, and I shoot some people down, I mean, consistently. I have people that are in our community who come to me with an idea sometimes once a week because they want to work in esports. And they're 19, they're 20, they may be at a community college, and their parents want them to go to college, and they know they don't want to go to school, they want to work at esports. And they keep asking, what do I do? How do I do it? What do I do? And along the way, I try to encourage them to, where I encourage most people to start is volunteer at events, if they can. If an MLG comes close to you and you're lucky enough, or an IPL is close to you, volunteer at the event, go to the event. God, invest in your own future. Think about this. If you're going to spend $25,000 to go to school for a year, this is just numbers out there, generic numbers. To go to an MLG event, I think cost as a spectator $30, maybe $25. Invest in that and go to an event. And here's something else. This is going to sound really corny, but we do it. You can ask anybody in the VV community. If you come to an MLG event with VV, I am personally going to take you, and I'm going to make you walk to every sponsor's booth. So let's say Columbus. The whole VV crew gets together, those that are not playing, all the fans, and we walk to the BenQ booth. We walk to the SteelSeries booth. So John at SteelSeries knows every one of our community members, and they get to meet him and take surveys and do this. And when we get done, I do a little quick improv seminar with them kind of thing, and a little sort of grad school seminar. I say, look, what you have just done is you've done more value to VVV and to MLG and to esports by going to visiting these sponsors, learning about their products, taking their stuff, because you may not know this, but you are, in the business world, a lead. You are someone who's shared your contact information. You've given them your email address. And when they go back to their boss is going to ask, how many leads did you get at MLG? And you're now a number, and an important number in that pile.